Hello, and welcome to the series Bad Medicine by MsRudecat. This is the story of the coyote and the rabbit. A coyote lived high up in the hills in the woods outside of town. His home was a hollowed-out log filled with fur. It was very comfortable, and he loved his home. Every night he went hunting down in the valley below. The valley had tall grass and flowers that grew wild. His mother had named him Tricky. When he was young, he always played tricks on his brothers and sisters. He learned his name he had to earn, and he was proud of that. Many years he had hunted in the same field. Sometimes he hunted alone. His brothers and sisters sometimes hunted with him. Tricky didn't have many friends. Many of the other coyotes didn't like him because he was getting slow at hunting. They hunted rats and rabbits. Tricky was older than most of the new hunters. His brothers and sisters were younger than him, too. He knew he had slowed down, but he had thought of himself as a great hunter. If he had not gotten hurt so many times playing tricks, he would have been faster. It seemed like his tricks always went wrong. At times the other coyotes got hurt too. That is why they did not want to play or hunt with him anymore. He had one other friend that hunted with him sometimes. She was an old coyote too, and she never played tricks, and he didn't play tricks on her. He liked her a lot, and he thought that she was smart. One night, he went down to the valley below to hunt. The rats, they hid under logs and scurried around the bushes. They were easy to find. Rabbits were much harder to hunt. They were quick and ran in all different directions. They ran one way, and then they would change course and run another way. Sometimes they circled back, and you couldn't find him. He was alone tonight. He saw many rabbits. Each time he tried to stalk one down, they disappeared. The rabbits that lived in this valley were quick as lightning. Their fur was matted and missing in some places. Their teeth were broken off, and they were skinny. They had a hard time chewing the grass with broken teeth. Tricky was told that they did a drug called meth or speed. That is why they were in such poor health and possible to catch. Other valleys had rabbits that were in better health, but it was too far to travel. These rabbits were fast and crazy. The moon was high in the sky, and Tricky could see so many rabbits. He chased after one, but it ran into a hole that Tricky could not dig into. His front paw had been injured when he had a rock smash it. He had set up a trap to trick one of his friends, and the rock fell on him instead. He chased another rabbit that somehow seemed to disappear under a thorny bush. No way was he going to go into a thorny bush. He learned his lesson a long time ago about those. He had ripped ear to prove it. Tricky had been hunting for 2 hours and was getting tired. He usually had a rabbit in the first half hour. He knew he was slowing down. He could not give up and go home hungry. He really was not in the mood for rat. They were tough and hurt his jaws. Sometimes they bit him too. A rat bite would hurt for days and slow him down even more tomorrow night. He was determined to get a rabbit tonight. Tricky hid under a berry bush and decided to wait until a rabbit came to him. New ideas always came to him that way. He worked, and some did not work. The only way to know was to try it. He had waited a while and was getting sleepy. He caught himself nodding off several times and was getting angry. If he fell asleep, he might not wake till morning, and it would be too late. He propped a stick under his chin, and he thought that would keep him awake. He relaxed and felt better. He was soon dreaming of his younger days, chasing rabbits that were so fast and catching them. He didn't know he was dreaming. He slept for an hour. Suddenly a rabbit ran straight into his stick and knocked it out from under his chin. He was shocked. The rabbit just stood there like it was dumb. He just stared at the rabbit because it did not run away. They usually hopped up into the air and took off running if something startled them. This one seemed like he was really out of his mind. His hair was a mess. His eyes looked like he had seen a ghost. And he didn't have a tooth in his mouth. The rabbit asked Tricky what his problem was. Tricky was without words. This was the first rabbit that had ever talked to him. He knew something was wrong with this one, and he did not want to eat a bad rabbit and get sick. Trying to sound smart, he took the stick from under his chin, and he said it was a trick to catch a rabbit. The rabbit took off running in the other direction, quickly turned back and ran right back into him again, and Tricky trapped him down with his bad paw. The rabbit noticed he had a bad foot and told him he could fix that. Tricky knew he wasn't going to get any better, but he was interested. The rabbit asked him if he had ever tried speed. You know, the kind that the rabbits did. Of course he had not tried it. He took pride in himself and took care of himself. What good is a coyote without teeth? Or, have bad fur? The rabbit told Tricky it took a lot of use to rot your teeth, and that he could be a champion hunter tonight in the meanwhile. Tricky wished his friend was there to help him make a good decision. This one he had to make on his own. He did not think of any of the other coyotes would know or find out, and so he agreed to try a little bit. The rabbit ran off and minutes was back. He put a small amount of white powder down on a leaf. Tricky thought it was such a small amount it couldn't hurt him. The rabbit told him to sniff it up his nose, and Tricky took a deep breath out and snorted all of it up his nose. In one huff, it hit him like a ton of bricks. He fell over sideways, and his nostril burned like he had just snorted fire. He felt a terrible slime running down his throat and gagged. His eyes felt like they were going to pop out of his head. Every sound around him seemed like it was magnified. Quickly, he stood up before he got sick. He shook the dizzy feeling off and seemed to feel better standing. Oh, yes, he thought, this might be good. He felt 10 feet tall, strong, and brave. He took off running and ran right over the scrawny rabbit and rolled into a rock. He hit his head and saw stars. They looked beautiful. He sat there for a while and watched the stars circle around his head in amazement. Then he took off running again. He thought he was chasing the stars, and suddenly he remembered he should be chasing rabbits. He saw one on the other side of the field. Shot up out after him in a run with long strides. The rabbit disappeared, and he changed direction and ran a different way. He saw rabbits everywhere. Each time the rabbit was gone when he got there. One rabbit was still sitting next to a thorn bush, and he ran straight for it. He didn't realize he was running too fast until he ran right into the thorn bush. Another ear was torn. He did not care. He was having fun. The sun started to come up over the hill, and he knew hunting for the night had ended. He didn't have a rabbit, and he did not care. He was not hungry. He headed to his fur-filled log to sleep. Tricky leaped and bounded all the way home. He got to his log, and sleep did not come. He tossed and turned and tried to keep his eyes closed. He was awake all day. His stomach was growling for food. The day seemed to drag forever, and he felt grumpy. His brother asked him if he caught a rabbit the night before, but he pretended to be asleep. He was bothered and did not want to admit he came home with an empty stomach. The next night at sunset, he headed down to the valley again. He was so tired and hungry. He lay under the same bush as he did the night before. Just as he was about to fall asleep, the same rabbit came running up to him. He was a scrawny rabbit. Tricky recognized him. He told him to go away. The rabbit threw some white powder out in front of him and told him he would wake up and be able to hunt if he just snorted a little again. Tricky wanted to hunt and eat. He needed to if he was going to keep up his strength. He quickly snorted it all up and had the same feeling as last night. Quickly hopped up, tumbled over the rabbit, caught himself this time, and kept running. He did not even look back once to see if the rabbit was all right. He ran in every direction, chasing one rabbit after another. At one point during his hunt, he ran straight into a tree, saw stars again. He knows he wasted some time chasing the stars, but he was on a mission. He saw so many rabbits, but he never caught one. The sun was going to come up soon, and he gave up early. Hungry and very tired, he headed back to his log. His fur lining felt prickly, and he was sweating. He felt disturbed and uncomfortable. He tried to sleep again, maybe dozed off once or twice. The night took forever to come. His friend came by to see him, but he growled at her, and she left without a word. Sunset was beautiful. Big, red ball in the sky. Tricky barely noticed it. He wanted to find the rabbit and try just one more time to get the extra energy to hunt. It had been 2 long nights, and he had not had a thing to eat. He went and waited under a bush. A long, skinny rabbit came up after him after waiting about an hour. He was not the scrawny one he was waiting for. Tricky asked where the other one was, and the skinny one told him he was sick. Tricky was hungry, tired, and grumpy. He knew he wouldn't make it for a hunt tonight without some of that meth. It did work like speed. He asked the skinny one if he had any. He felt like he needed it so bad. The rabbit said he had some, but Tricky would have to give him a pile of clover in exchange. Slowly he stood up and went out into the field. He started to dig at the clover and felt dumb. Only rabbits ate clover? If any other coyote saw him digging for clover, he would look like a fool. He pulled out some with his teeth and dug with his claws. It took him a while to gather a pile together. It was humiliating. He pushed the pile with his nose to the bush where the rabbit was waiting. And the rabbit had a strange smirk on his face, just plain annoyed Tricky. He felt rage. He held back his temper because he wanted what that rabbit had. That rabbit tossed out some white powder onto the ground and was gone in a flash. Tricky snorted all that he could out of the dirt. The same feeling did not come over him. No quick energy this time. His stomach hurt, and his eyes rolled back in his head, and he passed out. He woke up, drenched in sweat. The sun was beating him on like a fire, out of control. He was dazed and confused. He realized he did not hunt. He was not sure what to do. He had to lay there in the grass for a while because his whole body hurt. He noticed that he had patches of fur missing and the sun was burning his bare skin. A tooth had fallen out and was next to his mouth in the dirt. He was so ashamed of himself. He knew he had to get back home to the woods up the hill. He did not know if he could make it, but he had to try. It took what seemed like hours to get to the coyote camp. All the coyotes stopped to look when he came into sight, and his brother ran up to him, and Tricky snarled at him for no reason. He crawled into his log in shame. The log was there for him, and that's all he had. He slept for the rest of the day, and the rest of the night, and the next night. The sun rose up on the second day, and he woke up. He could not sleep anymore. He was not able to hunt during the day and had to wait for the sun to set. Tricky could not remember the last time he ate. His friend came by, brought him a rat to eat. Tasted like rubber. He choked it down and drank some water. The sun finally set, and he went to the valley to hunt. He didn't go anywhere near the bush where the rabbits that dealt the meth hung out. He stayed with his brother this time. His paw was very sore from running on it the other nights, and he was missing a tooth and was too embarrassed to tell any of the coyotes why. His hair was patchy looking. He hoped it would grow back. They had a good hunt that night. The best night he could remember. He was fat and happy at sunrise when they headed back to camp. His brother asked him what happened to him, but he didn't want to tell. When they got back to camp, he crawled into his log and went into a deep sleep. He had nightmares of rabbits pulling his fur out. They were skinny, sickly rabbits with no teeth. They pulled his hair out with their gums. The rabbits ran circles around him and laughed at him. He woke to find that it was only a dream. He was home in his fur-lined log. He always hunted with his brother after that. He did not hunt alone. He was not ever as fast as he used to be, but his fur grew back. His tooth he kept in his log to remind him that bad things can happen if you're not careful or you take some of what they call that speed. He knew he would never do anything like that again. His friend forgave him for snarling at her for no reason. She sometimes went on hunts with him and his brother. He recovered, and his health improved, and life was good for Tricky once more. The end. Thank you.